we're away, and I'm with
I'm Brian McCarthy, Managing Director of Le Masurier.
of Le Masurier. Now, Le Masurier is a surprisingly large business, isn't it? I was used to just a few pubs around Jersey, but it's much more than that, isn't it?
Yeah, we are a substantial property investment and development company. So we've grown over the last 20 years. Where we were in sort of wines and spirits business, we sold the wines and spirits business, become a property company, and have been growing by acquiring property in the UK and in Europe. But we've always had the two major development sites in St Helier that we wanted to regenerate. That's being Merchant Square up at Park Street and Les Sablons here in Wall Street and Commercial Street.
Do you yet own all its land concerned with this? Is this all your land?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
It is. Because it's a lot of money that's being invested here, and which is quite brave in an unsettled world. I mean, I don't know how people like yourselves and the other businesses involved predict what's going to happen in the next 10, 20 years. How do you set about that?
I think you've got to have a vision, I think, for Merchant Square, which is £70 million of investment. You know, we had a vision in terms of boosting tourism and providing housing, because we know there's a chronic shortage of housing. And that created Merchant Square. We're about to open the hotel. The apartments have sort of flown away, and we've been selling them at an affordable level relative to the competition in the market. And Les Sablons is £120 million of investment. Again, it's all Le Masurier, it's all private sector investment. But again, it's providing yet another new apart hotel for the town, and 238 residential units for
at the end of the day, who will have control of the whole scheme? Because obviously if certain aspects of it didn't do very well and they wanted to sell that part, how would that fit in?
That's all our responsibility.
Is it, don't you?
With Le Masurier.
Right. I was this transformation, because there used to be some fabulous hotels from a location point of view around the coasts with all the fabulous sites. Most of those have gone. Now that's the traditional sort of holiday centre hotel. That seems to be dying, but it still exists in some parts of the world. You see the brochures and they're showing all these magnificent views. Now this site is quite different. You haven't got magnificent views.
But what it is as an apart hotel, is attracting not just business people for longer durations, but families for family holidays. So if you think about, there's a real lack, I think, of accommodation for families for long stays, where you've got not just a bedroom in a hotel room, but you've got a kitchen, you've got some living space, and that will encourage families to stay for longer durations, I think, rather than just sort of weekend breaks.
Yes.
And it is in the centre of town, which, albeit not on the coast, a lot of the families want to be able to come out the front door of the hotel and explore town, and that's what we're trying to do, and animate within our landscape gardens in the courtyard, bring some animation back to town. So there are things, bars and restaurants and things to see and do.
How much do you want, because there are security issues with hotels and these sort of things. Generally speaking, people are not encouraged to come onto a hotel site unless they've got a restaurant there which is open to the public and so on. How do you imagine that security will be maintained on this site? Because you've got several aspects of it. You've got housing on the site, you've got short stay, self-catering, which I presume they're short stay, and you've got the hotel element about it. And you've got other sorts of activities going on. Who will oversee it all? Who will look at it from a security point of view?
So there'll be a managing company that controls the estate effectively, and that includes things like CCTV, liaising with the residents, the hotel and so on. It'll be, what tends to happen with developments like this, it tends to be quite well policed, because you've got so many interested parties in making sure it's safe and secure. The central courtyard will be publicly accessible, so there will be some surveillance within that area for security and safety. But they tend to self-police themselves because there's so many interested parties in making sure that...
Now, obviously, Broad Street is closed to traffic now. Presumably that you're anticipating that will prevail. That will be, Broad Street will be closed.
Well, as I've said previously, it's not within our gift to make a decision about Broad Street. I think if it is permanently pedestrianised, then there's some synergy with our scheme in terms of creating a more central pedestrianised core of St Helier. If it's not pedestrianised, our scheme is kind of standalone. It doesn't really matter one way or the other. But that's not within our gift to make that decision.
But it's designed on the basis that Commercial Street will be where the access will be primarily for vehicles.
Commercial Street would be the back door of the hotel,
Yeah.
but the front door will be very much looking into the landscape,
Right.
courtyard gardens. But there will be pedestrian access from Commercial Street all the way through to Pools.
Where would taxis, for example, turn
There's
up?
going to be a lay-by on Commercial Street to facilitate
Commercial
taxis
Street,
dropping
okay.
off guests to the hotel.
Now, you've got how many flats are proposed?
238.
Now, I noticed you've only got a small number of car parking spaces. Now, I know we're all supposed to suddenly develop wings and not need cars, but I mean, and there are other activities as well, but that sounds like a rather small number of car parking spaces.
We've got 96 car parking spaces for the residents.
Right.
The issue with parking is there's a planning policy to basically remove commuter car parking from the centre of town. So we simply would not get planning consent if we propose to have a large number of car parking
Right.
spaces on the site. So it's really planning policy driven.
I noticed also on the plan that you've got the car parking is only on one level.
Yes.
Wasn't possible to make it a two level so you could accommodate more.
No, for the same reason. The number of spaces is crucial from a planning perspective. So we've kept them at ground floor level with a podium rooftop, which will be landscape gardens for the apartments to look into.
I noticed you refer to electric charging points
Yep.
in anticipation that it's electric cars, electric bikes, can be all sorts of things on skateboards. I don't know whether they would ever become legal or not. So people want a lot of facility, or will want a lot of facility for electric charging, won't they?
So the development from a sustainability point of view is all electric, and we'll be providing the car parking charging units within the car parking areas. Lots of cycle provision as well, and we're also providing accessible parking spaces within the development as well.
Well, the accessible, again, is something that concerns me greatly, disability design. Obviously, it looks like a nice flat site from Commercial Street to Broad Street, whether it is or not. Whether there is much of a change of level, I don't know.
There is probably about a metre change in level. Yeah. But the way we've landscaped it is that the gradient, you won't actually feel that change in topography, you won't actually feel that as you walk through.
And the buildings themselves, obviously, standards will demand that you have lift access within the buildings.
Yeah, there'll be lift servicing all of the apartments and the hotel.
Right. Okay. There are aspects about this. People who have flats, if they've got bicycles or anything that need wheelchairs that need to be charged electrically, there is a small level of potential danger that they have been examples where they've caught fire, they've burst, especially when people play around with the specification of what they're using, put the wrong battery on or things like that. Is that something that concerns you at all, that you could have a lot of electrical things, transport things being charged up? Is that something that you considered?
The whole consumption issue is taken into account from the sustainability point of view. So the development is actually engineered around the sustainability. We've got a member of a company called Hawley, who are our sustainability consultants, to prevent exactly that sort of thing happening. So capacity levels and things like that. Beyond my pay grade, because it's very technical, but to enable and ensure that elements that you're referring to there just simply can't happen. And
within the buildings, obviously, multi-occupancy buildings are potentially dangerous from a fire point of view, as we all know ever since Grenfell, and bigger fires even before that and since then. Sprinkler systems, is it throughout this complex, will there be sprinklers?
Yep, throughout the hotel and the residential units.
Right.
So it's fully sprinkled.
Right. How many floors total are you going to be? What's the highest one you've got there?
We are 7 floors. But you may know we had a planning consent for the J1 scheme, which was an office development.
Right.
We sit comfortably within the consented envelope of the J1 scheme, so we're not any taller than we've got consent for currently.
I used to do a lot of design work for the Modern Hotels group, and I was just talking to one of your colleagues about it, because I noticed one of my little designs is now being demolished, the Mayfair, which worked very well as a hotel. It was a low-budget hotel. It had all sorts of amenities, all sorts of activities going on there. They had a swimming pool and they had entertainment cabarets, and it was a remarkably, for what they had, the buildings were architecturally didn't amount to much, but the use of them was fabulous. They were a great amenity for the whole island.
Agreed.
Now, you're not providing that sort of facility.
I think with the landscape courtyard we are, because there'll be ground floor cafes, bars, restaurants. The hotel, as I say, will accommodate business people as well as families for longer duration stays. The hotel itself has a gym and a guest laundry, so you can stay, you can do your own laundry, you can exercise. So I think we are providing quite a lot of facilities. Not perhaps on, we haven't got a swimming pool, for example. It's not on the same scale as the Mayfair, but certainly
it was a very small swimming pool.
But certainly there'll be a lot of amenities within the hotel and on its doorstep.
The thing is, when you look at old street plans, the public are engaged. They wander around. They feel as though it's part of their realm to wander anywhere. Is that the sort of atmosphere you're trying to create?
Yeah, absolutely. Personally, I want to leave a legacy to St Eliot, so this will be not just providing the connectivity across town, but a legacy of somewhere a space where the public will enjoy. And if you look at the landscape gardens, you've got sort of pockets of seating areas. Now, I see it's an oasis as you come off the sort of hustle and bustle of King Street. You come into this oasis, and we're able to properly plant trees because there's no basement, so we can actually deep root trees and have an environment that the public can enjoy. That's what I want to leave as a legacy.
Are you going to get yourself some mature trees?
Yep.
You are not.
Yep, absolutely.
Not seeds because.
We've got a specialist landscape architect.
Have you?
And I think very, very creatively done. And they've looked at a planting palette that is Jersey relevant, recognising the climate that Jersey has. So where we've got shady areas of the development, we'll have species that tolerate shade, and likewise, species that tolerate sunlight.
I mean, if you're putting mature trees in, that sounds good, but buildings mature, they get tired. Hotels especially get tired. How long do you anticipate that this development as a whole will stay? Before major alterations have to be made, the customers demands different things. What, in your planning of it from an economic point of view, is this a 10-year, 20-year, 30-year?
Longer.
Is it?
Stay City have taken a 25-year lease with an option to renew for a further 25 years.
Right.
So they are looking at it very much as long-term, as we are. Yes, things need to be refurbished, and the hotel will have its own maintenance programme and regime, obviously. But if they're prepared to invest for a minimum 25, but maximum 50 years, that shows the commitment to the development from the principal tenant.
The architects, are you using local architects or a mixture of architects?
The architect on this is Shepherd Robson, who are a UK-based architect.
Right.
And Shepherd Robson were involved on our J1 project.
Right.
So they know the site inside out and been with us for some time.
Right.
That's not a criticism to any local architects. It's just we've worked with them on a number of projects for a long time.
And the contractors who will build it, are you going to bring in labour? Because obviously that is a real issue, where the labour comes from.
So we haven't settled on our procurement route yet. It's going to be a local contractor, there's no doubt about that. And that will mean we estimate 120 full-time jobs during construction will be locally sourced.
Okay. Well, I can think of nothing else to ask you, but if you've got any points you want to make.
No problem. Thanks for your time.
Very well. It's of great interest.
Thank you.
Cheers.